Thank you all for coming this morning. Can you hear me? Yes. I can't hear you.
Good morning.
Thanks for trudging through the rain and coming to this Drupaldelphia event. I know it's been a hiatus for 2 years, but we're very thankful to have you all participate today. We have an exciting lineup of talks ahead of us, and we'll get started. So just to start off, one quick remark. The Wi-Fi is Drupaldelphia. The password is Message Agency, capital M, capital A. Thanks to our core sponsor, Message Agency. Thank you, Marcus and team. You'll notice in the facilities today, as you're walking around, there's blue tape on the floors. The tape hopefully will help guide you to some of the rooms, as well as signify which rooms are off limits and not being used for today's function. A special thanks to Huston College, who's gracefully hosting us today. Thank you. Without them, we probably would not have had an event this year because it's such a bureaucracy dealing with the convention center. So beyond that, a couple things to note. There is a coffee station already set up in the kitchen at the end of the hall here. It's got coffee, tea, and water full service. Later in the morning after the first session, there'll also be a coffee station with water set up in the nook down by the classrooms on the left-hand side. If you need to use the facilities, the washrooms are also down the hall, second hallway on the right as you're going down there. We do have a room designated for BOSS, 2 rooms designated for BOSS today, as well as a coder's lounge. If anyone has any ideas and they'd like to pitch and lead BOSS or a small sprint, there's a whiteboard in front of those rooms. Feel free to fill in your idea and the time slot, and you can claim the room. Volunteers will be going around every hour, checking it and updating it and posting it to our site. Other than that, quick round of reminders. Today we do have one last-minute cancellation in sessions. In the D7 services track at 2:45, this is room 171 in your program guide. The Blue Cadet session on using React, Gatsby.js, GraphQL will not be presented. Instead, there'll be a different React talk during that time in the same room. But all other sessions in the program book are up to date. The website is up to date and reflects the new talk, so you can see the session description there. Another thing to note about your program here, you'll find on the inside front page there is a map to the facility. It shows you where the rooms are. Just so you know, the room key on the side is a little off, one of the room numbers, and is switched around. As long as you follow what's in the actual schedule across the top headers, you'll find the right room to go to. Aside from that, we'd like to give a special thanks to all our sponsors, starting with our core sponsors, Message Agency, EPAM Systems, our diamond sponsor, Quadratech, our platinum sponsors, Eastern Standard, Johnson & Johnson, SafeTech, our gold sponsors, Blue Cadet and Linode, our silver sponsor, ThinkDrop, who has Open Dev Shop. Be sure to check out their talk later today. Bronze sponsors, Lullabob, ValueBound, and our module sponsors, Cerner and Engine Room Technology. Most of our sponsors have exhibition booths in the back here. There's a few also back here against this wall. Feel free to talk to the teams, find out what they do, how they can possibly help you, get some free swag. Other than that, a reminder once more, the Wi-Fi today is Drupaldelphia, capital M, capital A for Message Agency for the password. Lunch will be served at 12:30 with local stove, presenting everything in the kitchen down at the end of the hall. If you have any questions, feel free to come to the information desk and look for anyone there to ask away. Don't forget, tonight after the event, hopefully the rain will have cleared up. It's supposed to be partly cloudy. We will be participating in the Philly Tech Week Kickoff Festival. Very excited to be part of Tech Week this year. Thank you to the Philly Tech Week organizers and Comcast for presenting it. And we look forward to presenting some more exciting Drupaldelphia events in the future with them. All right, awesome. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Chris Urban, who will be moderating.
Thanks, Preston. One more thing, just to remind you, we'll be tweeting the event on Twitter, if anybody's following us, at Drupaldelphia. If you are tweeting about the session, please use hashtag Drupaldelphia, hashtag PTW18, because we are the first event for this year's Philadelphia Tech Week 2018. So I just want you all to be proud of that. It's going to be awesome. All right, let's get started. My name is Chris Urban. I'm from Acquia. I live here in the Philadelphia area. This time for Drupaldelphia, we decided to try something different for the keynote. Rather than having one person talk, we decided to invite four to represent the four corners of the Drupal community. So I'm going to give you the, this will make sense in a second. I want to give everybody a quick introduction. I'll introduce everybody, and then we're going to do a quick forum Q&A. I've given them all 2 questions to respond to. If we have some time left over, we'll open it up to questions. I don't think we will, but it should be interesting, and I hope you find what these 4 gentlemen have to say to be helpful and interesting, and most importantly, to foster the communication that these events provide. I encourage you to stop and say hello. Make sure to stop and thank all of our sponsors who came out today, who helped us get this show on the road. And again, a special thanks to Hushen College for giving us this great space. So I hope you all have an awesome day. All right, so let's start. I've got 4 gentlemen here. Let me go from right to left. First, I've got Peter Brooks, who is the Director of Career Services and Admissions from Hushen College. To his left is Joel Chu, who is the PMO Service Delivery Manager at Thomson Reuters. To his left is Preston So. Preston and I work together at Acquia. Preston is the Director of Research and Innovation, which means he gets to do all the cool stuff that I build 2 years later. And then Marcus Iannozzi is the founder and the principal of Message Agency, one of our sponsors here today. So hopefully you can see where this is going. So what I'd like each of you to do, we'll start with Joel. Joel, if you want to just talk about yourself for a few minutes.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, good morning, everyone. How are you today? All right, you get your coffee? All right, I think I just want to share with you a story to begin with. In my early career with Honeywell, as a project manager, it is uncommon for executives to hire project managers for the purpose of finding the single point of contact to take full responsibility when something is not working, right? That's the whole idea. Hey, I had one throat to choke. You are the one throat to choke. So as we go through the process, so this is how we get things done. We walk around and say, hey, Preston, is it going to be delivered? Is it ready to go? So coming from Agile, I still clearly remember in one of the town hall meetings, one of the developer was putting up his hand and saying, hey, perhaps we should adopt Agile because we will benefit from self-managing teams, right? Wow, the senior executive responded immediately. Wow, what a brilliant idea. Now we have all the hands to choke all the throats at the same time, all the time. Wow, we want to go Agile. No, I mean, guys, I mean, from my humble experience over time this is exactly what we need to drop and forget about it, right? With this modern kind of economy, which dependent on knowledge base, it is imperative for everybody to embrace and share that common vision and work towards it continuously, relentlessly pursue excellence towards the goal, and over time, again and again. That is the only way to create differentiating, compelling customer value in the long haul. So I think Drupal is on the right track because of you guys, because of Chris and everybody here. So I really want to compliment Driesnote, the founding founders and the project lead for laying up and embracing the Drupal's values and principles. Among the principles, which is very consistent to lean agile mindset. So for example, in Agile, we talk about really hiring motivated individuals, give them the right environment to grow, and really most important of all, trust that they will get their job done, right? So in lean software, likewise, it's the same thing. We respect people, we amplify learning, and then what we will do is to make sure we respect each other and collaborate frequently. So in the Drupal values, not one, but two, you're talking about better together and treat each other with dignity and respect. So I can go on and on and on talking about all these very cool principles, but I will leave it to some of our agile experts this afternoon and talk about some of these principles. And last but not least, I want to share my favorite Drupal principle number 11: grow, learn, share, and make friends along the way. And make sure, please have fun. Thank you, everyone.
That's a tough act to follow. Hey, by the way, everyone who's in the back over there, there's a lot of seats over here. If you want to, we don't bite, by the way. Maybe Marcus, but not me. Okay, I've got some free seats here. So my name is Preston. I'm Director of Research and Innovation at Acquia. As Marcus said, does mean I get to play with cool, or Chris said, it means I get to play with cool things. But one of the things that I find very interesting about the ways that people work with emerging technologies, and especially the ways in which people are engaging with these things in the Drupal community, is that a lot of folks come to this from a very circuitous route. I mean, a lot of us have come into Drupal from very different places in our lives and our careers. I know plenty of accountants and former lawyers and former doctors and consultants who have become Drupal developers and contributors to Drupal very actively. And the fact that that is something that's possible is really a testament to the democratization of technology that open source has wrought. So it's really a pleasure to be here at Drupaldelphia. I came here 2 years ago and was floored by how amazing the community is here. I'm actually coming from New York today, so I'm a little sleepy. But one thing I do want to talk about very briefly is our Acquia Labs program at Acquia is working very actively on figuring out the next steps for Drupal and the ways in which we can build some of the best experiences of tomorrow using Drupal as that foundation. If you're interested in things like augmented reality, virtual reality, Drupal experiences, things like beacon technology or conversational interfaces, please do talk to me because that's really my bread and butter. And the other thing that I do want to very, very briefly plug is that for those of you in the area here in Philadelphia, in August, we are having the second edition of Decoupled Drupal Days, which is the only conference dedicated solely to decoupled and headless Drupal approaches. I hope to see you all there. It's at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City, August 17th through 19th in 2018. So thank you.
It's on the back of your...
Thank you, Preston. Good morning, everybody. My name is Marcus Iannozzi, and I'm the founder and principal of Message Agency. You know, we've been involved in the community since about 2004, 2005. So we've watched it evolve, we've watched the platform evolve, and I think that what's been most exciting for us as a smaller agency, who only works with nonprofits, universities, foundations, some government. So, we have a very specific market, and one that Drupal really had its foundations in. Early on, going to DrupalCon in 2009, let's say, there were a lot of nonprofits in attendance. And one of the things that we're interested in is making sure that smaller shops and smaller organizations can still use Drupal, can still, will find it accessible and will find it cost effective. And it's something that, we've watched a lot of debate around this as Drupal, as it should, finds its foothold in the enterprise. But it is something that, we have focused on and finding ways to make sure we can serve not only small organizations but also large. And I think some of the things that we heard and we'll be talking about today in the Driesnote, for those of you who were at DrupalCon or caught it online, is really the ways that Drupal 8 are going to be able to compete a little more with popular platforms like WordPress and others that have a little less steep of a learning curve, and that's something we're really, really interested in. But the only other thing I want to say is I think, we're a small shop, but we've done pretty big things. And I think that Drupal provides that opportunity, not only to small shops, but individuals to give back. It's something that's important to our agency. We're a 17-person firm, and since about 2007, we've been leaders in the Salesforce suite, which are the modules that integrate Drupal and Salesforce, and we just rebuilt it for Drupal 8. And if we can do that, then anyone can do that. Anyone who has that drive and that willingness to give back. There are a lot of firms who are using Drupal, and they're not here, and they're not contributing. And we really need to make sure that they continue in order to grow the community and to deal with some of the competition we're feeling. They really need to give back.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Brooks, and as Chris said, I'm the Director of Career Services, and I also work in admissions here at Husson College. So on behalf of the college, I'd like to welcome you all to our new facility. This is actually our first major outside conference. I mean, we had a grand opening, so welcome. And honestly, I hope this portends for great things to come. This is a very auspicious start. So Husson College was founded in 1946 by John Husson. John Husson was a refugee from the Armenian genocide, came here around the time of World War I. We don't think he got above a 5th grade education, but he ingratiated himself in the arts community. So with support from the Philadelphia Museum of Art, he founded a college for returning veterans who wanted to learn art. In the 1960s, we became more of a commercial arts school. So from that time until the present, most of our graduates are in marketing, advertising, public relations. We have an undergraduate program in graphic design, visual communications, and digital media. I think we are the only school in the country that requires all of its students to have a minor in UI UX. Thank you. It's a hard fight because we're a for-profit college. So when we want to adopt new programs like UI UX, we can do that without having to go through committees and faculty senate and all that stuff. The college also has an adult boot camp. That's a full stack developer boot camp with front end, back end, as well as UI UX and enhanced back end. We're doing Python. We are, as you see, a facility that is here for you. As we find that you need classes, we'll be happy to offer them for you. Where's Martin? Yeah, Python, just a class in Python. So we just have to work out the details. We'll get the faculty, and whether you want to come on Saturdays or evenings or what have you. But this facility is here to try to make Philadelphia more of a powerhouse than it already is in the tech scene. So thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so next portion, what I'd like to do, let's start with this. Who here went to DrupalCon Nashville 2 weeks ago? Raise your hand. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. So hopefully you'll get to see some of the sessions you missed at that con. We've got some of them repeats here. My next question is how many that were at DrupalCon or later online watched the Driesnote, Dries presentation at the beginning of DrupalCon? All right, so for those of you who did not, I'm going to give you the quick and dirty summary. Dries put together a fantastic presentation. It's referenced on our website. You can we'll take some time to watch. It's about 120 slides. He covered 4 goals that he wants to see the Drupal community undertake. And these 4 goals were to improve the technical evaluation process so that people that were evaluating Drupal for the first time would find it to be easy to use and the awesome tool that we all know that it is, and that's why we're here, because we love Drupal. The second goal is to improve the content creator experience. Make it easier for people to create content the way they want to do it in Drupal. The third, improve the site builder experience. So this is for those of us that have to do the fun job of putting together our customers' wildest dreams. Try to make that as easy as possible. And then lastly, promote Drupal to the non-technical decision makers. So those folks that don't understand the benefits of open source software, they see this as just another content management system or something more powerful. Provide ways to expose Drupal to the remaining community that is not aware of how awesome Drupal is. So what I've asked our four lightning keynoters is two different questions, and we'll spend some time through each of these. The first question is, of those four goals that Dries outlined for the community, improving the technical evaluation process, improve content creator experience, improve the site builder experience, and promoting Drupal to non-technical evaluators, which of these four do you think is the most important and why? All right, so again, we'll start with Joel and we'll pass it down.
All right, guys. Chris, based on this question, they're good questions, right? You can't leave one without the other. They're all very, very important. But we want to share based on my experience working with finance, right? Because of PMO, I think one of the biggest lessons learned is to make certain concept easy for non-technical decision making, right? The process of funding a project, the procurement process, what they would like to see oftentimes is a very clear value proposition. I know it may not be like the good word to bring out here. The value proposition, cost of ownership, what is the benefit. Right now there's a matrix where we look at things such as the community influence, like how enthusiastic the community is looking at Drupal, the reputation, is it going to stay? Things of this nature is something that is worth considering, Chris. This is only some of my humble experience. Maybe I should pass it on to someone else to kind of share some of their experience.
Yeah, Preston, nice.
Sure. So I come from a very interesting background in the fact that I've been doing websites since 2001, but I actually started out primarily as a front-end developer and as a web designer. In 2004, I sold my first website design. It was not a very good one, but it was in Drupal 5. 2007. And then, ever since then, I've seen the ways in which design and the front end have both shifted in a very disruptive way, in the ways that people today can't even really fathom the way that it used to be even just 5-10 years ago. And so for me, what really is important for what I would call an evergreen front-end experience or an evergreen content creation process is the fact that today all content can no longer just be on the web. When you're talking about content, when you're talking about your brand, you have to serve all of that content and publish that content out to a variety of different channels. It's no longer enough just to have a website. Drupal can serve as the kind of conduit through which all of that content flows, but fundamentally, we can no longer just be writing content for websites. For me, as much as I loved being a site builder and doing all sorts of the things that we were used to, as much as I loved being a developer, and as much as I really liked to make decisions about Drupal, sort of taking on Drupal, for me the most important experience, bar none, is the content creator experience. But it's not so much the content creator experience in the context of how you are building a website and how you're going to serve content to that website. It's really the idea of how can we create the ideal content creator experience that allows for someone who's an editor at a magazine or someone who's a freelancer at a sort of a mom and pop shop marketing company. How are they going to be able to use Drupal in a way that allows them to dictate in an agnostic way how their content should look in a variety of different places? Let me give you an example of this. Last year, our Acquia Labs team worked with the state of Georgia to build the first ever Amazon Alexa skill called Ask Georgia Gov. And this was a very interesting project that our innovation team did with the team over at Georgia, their Drupal 7 site. One of the issues that they had is they're constantly looking for ways to innovate and looking for ways to bring their content to different paradigms. We looked at conversational, we looked at Amazon Alexa as being a good way to do this. But here's the problem. A lot of us, especially those of us who work in the nonprofit sector, those of us who work in the public sector, those of us who work in areas where we don't have the luxury of having 20 or 50 editors in a room all working on content together, you don't really have the luxury of saying, well, I'm going to write content for the web here, and I'm going to write content for a conversational interface here, I'm going to write content for an Apple Watch here, or content for virtual reality experience here. No one in state government has that luxury, and I imagine many of you in the audience don't have that luxury either. So for us, what we really wanted to do was to create an experience that allowed for a content editor to have that agnostic experience where they're going to edit some content and they recognize that a frequently asked question that they edit is going to display on the website, but is also going to be something that will be searchable on an Amazon Echo. So for me, fundamentally, it's really about the content creator experience. You know, us developers, we can deal with whatever we're thrown up against because we're developers. Site builders, I think site building is very important. It has to always be in the context of what are we doing in an omni-channel landscape? What are we doing in the context of all of these other channels that we're constantly seeing emerge right now on the market today? So that's sort of my contribution.
Awesome.
Thanks, Preston. It's really hard, I think, to focus on one. I mean, they're all, as you were saying, interdependent. But one of the things that, from the agency perspective, is critical is the non-technical decision maker and having them really understand the value, because Drupal already has tremendous value. It already has tremendous advantage over other CMSs, whether they're proprietary or open source. And I think that the challenge is they're complex concepts, and it's really hard for people to understand why accessibility is important, why the way that Drupal modules are built are far superior to WordPress plugins, things of that nature. And it's erudite, and they don't get it. And we saw as the end of life for Drupal 6 approached, a number of smaller organizations just abandoned Drupal altogether. They just decided to go with WordPress. Someone came into their communications department or their marketing department, or they got a new development officer, and that person heard of WordPress, never heard of Drupal. And if they did hear about Drupal, they heard very negative things. They heard that it was tough to the sites were tough to manage, they weren't built properly, they were difficult to maintain. And I think that Drupal got a bad rap, and it was unwarranted, but it was enough for smaller organizations to kind of erode adoption. So I think it's important, especially with accessibility and the need, not only for government agencies and higher ed institutions, but really any organization that receives federal dollars, to pay attention to accessibility. And that's one place where Drupal far exceeds WordPress for sure. Also sort of the multiple language component, all of these things that really, if we can figure out how to describe them in plain terms, we'll be able to sort of really highlight the value of this platform. There was I got to participate at DrupalCon in a business roundtable with the association, and it was a group of agencies, as small as ours, and sort of much larger agencies as well. But everybody had the same experience, and the experience was we're getting pressure in the market. We're having to adopt these other CMSs because we're getting requests for them, and we need help from the association and the community to communicate this. We need marketing information. We need tools to be able to demonstrate why Drupal is the better choice. So that's something that I think the association has decided to focus on, and it's going to help with, I think, both the technical evaluation process, which is the first one, and also having Drupal really understood by non-technical decision makers.
Awesome.
Thank you. That was really good. As the non-technical person on the stage, I guess I had an unfair. I had to choose number 4. And so I guess what I can do is just take an academic approach to it. Right here in Philadelphia at the Wharton School is Jonah Berger, who's the author of the book Contagious. Jonah Berger is an expert in how things become viral. That's what he studies. And so if you can't get him, he's creating an army of students who are adopting his philosophy that are out there, and they will be really available to you for consulting. Berger has about 6 things that he mentions. One of them is social currency. Another non-technical person, and I guess my overall theme is to, if you're going to approach non-technical people, to get the real influencers. And I mean, I looked to our college president, Dr. Staropoli. When I met Dr. Staropoli about a year ago, he had maybe 100 students or so. Today, he's got thousands of students. Hushin has a campus on Los Angeles that we own. We're also purchasing a number of colleges in the middle part of the United States. So any education thing that you do, we can now roll out across the country. We also sell curriculum. Our boot camp is for sale, and schools in Georgia and other places are buying the curriculum to institute at their colleges. So one of the things that Berger talks about is this idea of social currency and the fact that everyone can associate you with something. And I just heard association with Drupal and accessibility. That's huge. And so I was thinking in terms of going viral to try to come up with these sort of phrases. Drupal, it's accessible. And that starts a conversation, what do you mean it's accessible? And then, when people come at me as a non-technical person and you come and say, oh, I'm going to do your website in Drupal. And I think, oh, I heard of Drupal. It's accessible, isn't it? And we've got this opportunity. And those are the kind of triggers, which is sort of the second one that he talks about. I did some myself, not knowing much about Drupal. I did have an opportunity to choose Drupal, and I chose another one. But that was years ago before I knew, because I didn't have anything to associate with Drupal. That's why.
You can still go back.
Well, not with the organization anymore. But anyway, Drupal, it's real. It starts a conversation. A little badge for programmers with a line through it, won't do WordPress. This programmer will not do WordPress anymore. That starts a conversation. Well, why won't you do WordPress? And then you get to sell your advantages. What does Drupal do at the end of the day? It organizes the web. It makes it accessible for people. It organizes the web. Drupal organizes the web. Drupal equals trust. That's a huge thing for a buyer. I mean, can I trust this platform? And as a buyer, I definitely don't trust WordPress. I mean, and then also, of course, promoting yourselves. Drupal, for minds that are free, or something that associates you, that captures the popular imagination. So then when you talk, and I'm just sort of training you guys a little bit, bunch of propeller heads, but I'm sorry. I just love that term. But speak in large terms, all right? So when you say to someone like me, you have to draw metaphors. It's the difference between hamburger and French fries and a meal that's specially made for you. That I can understand. WordPress tries to be all things to all people, and I can easily see where that's a problem. Whereas if you're going to make a custom meal for me, that I can relate to. So I think in terms of drawing metaphors, creating leverage by accentuating the differences that you have with the other platforms out there would help in terms of non-technical people.
Thanks, gentlemen. All right, I do have to just bookend Peter's comments here. By no means do we condone the use of WordPress. We really want to support all open source platforms, but we know that Drupal is the best one, so maybe we'll phrase it that way. All right, so our next question, our last question. Because we've got everybody here, I think this is a really great representation of the open source Drupal community here in Philadelphia. It's not just Drupal, as you've seen the 4 guys up here. They're coming from various backgrounds. We've got a lot of folks from Agile Philly here tonight. If you're from Agile, can you raise your hand? Awesome. So I want to thank these ladies and gentlemen for coming up, because they're here to share their project management, their Agile, their Scrum, their Lean, their Kanban, anything that you want to know, find these guys and talk to them. They know it all. What I want to ask is, now that we have all of you here, I want to ask you, of these folks, what do you want to see from the community? What do you think is the one thing you would like to see the Philadelphia Drupal community help with, and how can they help? All right. So, same again, Joel, put you on the spot.
Wow, that's a big one.
You have an audience.
Yes. Well, today I see that the audience is really great, so just continue doing what you're doing best, right? You guys have been really propelling this Drupal movement that's much bigger than WordPress, right? Just keep going and embrace it, and you have to trust yourself, and I'm trusting you.
Okay, awesome.
Alrighty. So I know that many of you have heard a lot about some of the things that are emerging around Decoupled Drupal. I'm not here to talk about Decoupled Drupal today. You've probably heard enough of me on that topic. But what I do want to talk about today is really what we want the future of Drupal to look like for all of these personas that we've discussed, including that non-technical decision maker who's looking for things that are flying across the page, instant reactions, instant feedback, all of the things that make applications really great today. And one of the things that I want to ask as a rhetorical question of this room is, if you were to look at and think of the most snazzy, up-to-date, impressive application today, would Drupal be on that list for you? Probably not. There's a reason for that. It's because of our history, it's because of our legacy. Drupal has been something that we've worked with for many of us, 5, 10, even 15 years. And over the course of that time, it's matured significantly. It's become a really powerful and robust product. But as with all technologies evolving, we also have to evolve as well. And one thing I want to ask of this room today is, how many people in the room know JavaScript or have worked with ES6? This new JavaScript wannabe that's emerging right now that everyone's using. The reason I ask that is because right now we're in a really interesting critical moment for Drupal. And that is, what do we want the user experience of Drupal to look like for people who are going to be evaluating Drupal in the next couple of years, or people who are just trying it out for the first time in the next couple of years? Matt Mullenweg had an answer for the WordPress folks a couple of years ago or last year when he said, the homework that I have for the WordPress community is learn JavaScript. I'm not going to go that far. But what I will say is, let's try and look at other projects for inspiration. Luckily, there is a big effort going on right now in the Drupal community to advance the modernization of JavaScript in Drupal, as well as the user interfaces that are in the administrative portion of Drupal. It's called the JavaScript Modernization Initiative. And if there's one thing that I would want everyone in this room to take a look at, it's that initiative right there. I've got several colleagues who are working very hard on it. Basically, their goal is to figure out, how can we take the best of JavaScript, things like React and the virtual DOM, and all of the really cool things that are happening in those ecosystems, and how can we bring some of that ingenuity into Drupal and into the Drupal front end? If you want to get involved, I highly recommend going to Drupal Slack. There is a channel called JavaScript where there are meetings held every Monday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Anyone is welcome to join. They're always looking for contributors. If you're looking for something to work on directly on GitHub, there's the JS Drupal organization on GitHub as well, which gives you access to all the really interesting work that the team is working on. Just a couple weeks ago, they just released kind of their first demo of a new and improved user permissions page. We all know about that massive spreadsheet of checkboxes of death. They made a really interesting demo that shows how we can really improve that user experience, make it snappier, and make it use modern technologies as well, like ES6 and React. So that's the one place I would love to get everyone here in Philadelphia involved in. Thank you.
Awesome.
You know, I think everyone around here has heard this phrase that, you know, Drupal, you come from the platform and you stay for the community. But I think that is very, very true, and I think there's a difference in the Drupal community than there is in other open source platforms. It does tend to be more diverse, and it's now starting to think again, about ingenuity from different perspectives. So, it's for the first few years, it was so developer focused, and I think that focus, while it was necessary and it made sense at the time, has shaped how we think about the platform, how we talk about the platform, and who gets to talk about it. And what I've seen changing, and I think is really powerful, is that contribution and participation is open to anyone in this ecosystem. People who are project managers, people who are marketers, people who are designers, and starting to think about how they can contribute within this ecosystem. I think that that's something that any of us can do. And then I wanted to call out has anyone heard of the Promote Drupal campaign that the association has started? So there's, of course they're trying to raise funds, and I would, encourage anyone who could give anything to give to it. So you can just go to Drupal.org and find that. But they're also asking for people to just participate and to say, hey, I know how to market things. I'd really like to help you figure out how to solve this problem. So I think, whether you're doing documentation, whether you're helping with marketing, there are so many different ways for people to get involved now, and so many different voices that have started to be heard, and there's way more room. I think that's one of the most promising things that's happening.
Thank you. Obviously, I need professors and students, one teacher to every 12 students. So, and that means creating demand. That means a sort of a tacit knowledge within the population that you're not really serious unless you know Drupal. So that's the first step. And so that would be really good. Gamification would be excellent for us. If you guys had badges, so I knew how much you know and in what areas and things like that would be really helpful. And I think engagement, participation like this is really important. Just a couple of things that I've been looking at as inspiration is Envision Studio, the Envision Studio. It's kind of the first like IoT from the ground up type of platform. And then I also really like card.co, CARRD.co, which is a really nice UI for making websites, which kind of drag and drop. So
Nice.
well designed. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so we've got about a couple of minutes. You guys want to take any questions from the audience? I'm just curious. Anybody have any questions for any of our keynoters? I know this is a crazy idea, right? No? All right. I'll stall until you think of a good one. All right, so a couple of reminders then. I want to first thank again our four keynoters. So from right to left, we have Marcus Iannozzi from Message Agency, Preston So from Acquia, Joel Chu from Thomson Reuters, and Peter Brooks from Hushin College. So please, one more round of applause for these four guys. Yeah, sure.
I'll start off the question. So how do we, with your discussion about community and inclusion and accessibility, how do we incentivize that? This is a really impressive event and group of people, but how do we keep momentum going across organizations with different priorities and different schedules, and how do we build community?
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest challenge. Part of that, I want to thank Chris and Anson and anyone else who was involved in organizing this event for doing it. More applause, because it's a lot of work to do that. I think, we're all busy, right? That's a good thing. We're all busy. There's a high demand for Drupal developers, but putting something like this together takes quite a bit of effort. I think that there's a couple of ways to consider your question. There's mutual best interest, right? So if you are an individual or a shop that contributes, you get to grow professionally. If you're an individual, you make a name for yourself. You find opportunities in ways that you might not have otherwise. And also, as an agency, you get known for expertise. There's a real value in contributing and being known. I mean, we've connected with organizations that as a small agency they would have never found us, and we would have never been able to compete with bigger organizations, but because of our expertise we can. And so I think that there's opportunity there, that it's not just a good thing to do. If you are making money from Drupal, you should give back, but it also, there's enlightened self-interest there.
One of the things we do here at the college is like a web clinic. So any entrepreneur or small business can bring in their website and it'll be evaluated by the students. And we're considering expanding that to social media marketing and other areas. And I think if you need a place for people who are starting in Drupal to kind of interact, once a month with people where you're stuck, I think that would also help incentivize community and mass adoption.
Mass adoption. Awesome. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Peter. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, awesome. So let me give you a couple of quick announcements just as a reminder for those of you that came in late. Welcome to Drupaldelphia 2018. That's the first thing, just to make sure you know where you are, right? Okay. I also want to just give a shout out to Anson because without his help, the two of us would not have been able to pull this off. And it's pretty much the two of us. Yes. Two. This is what two people can do. Imagine what 5 or 10 could do. So if you are interested in volunteering, want to help us with the next event, when we do this again next year, please see me or Anson, who's at the main desk. If you came in late and did not get a program, we have more coming. They'll be available at the main desk in about 20 minutes, which means go to the main desk to look up what your first session is going to be or borrow someone's badge. Good way to make friends. Hey, can I take a look at your schedule? Remember, the point of this event is to make friends, meet new people, engage in conversations, share your experiences with Drupal, share your experiences with Agile, share your experiences with JavaScript. That's what this is all about. All right? Reminder, the Wi-Fi password, again, you'll see it on the ticker on the bottom of the screens because it is not correct on the program. We can't do everything perfect. It's camel, upper camel case, or Pascal if you're a true nerd, capital M message, capital A agency. Bathrooms and bottle filling stations, if you're like to stay hydrated, are down the hall to the right. There'll be coffee and drinks here in the lunch area and at the other end where the Boff and Lounge area is. And last and most importantly is if you have a few minutes, please stop, say thank you to all of our sponsors because without their help, this event would have not been possible. So just take a few minutes, stop and say thanks. All right? So I hope everybody has an awesome camp. I'll see you back here at the end of the day and we'll talk about the kickoff party afterwards. All right? Happy Drupal camping.